think we're seeing a little bit of the shift in the women's and men's game. I mean,
That's
we're
right.
seeing the popularity of the women's game, rising, and a little bit of the popularity of the men's game going down. NBA, numbers are suffering a little bit. WNBA numbers are rising. Teams are coming in. I think we have five new teams coming in the next 3 or 4 years in the WNBA. So, I mean, you're right. It happens. And it's right there on the cusp of happening, at the lowest level, which is, at this point is youth basketball.
That's right. Coach Fowler, now let me ask you, when did you fall in love with basketball? What was your moment? For me, it was that Craig Elo shot. When was it? When did you fall in love with basketball where you were like, oh my God, I love this game? And welcome to the Love of the Game, our first podcast. We just want to invite you in for the love of the game. There are thousands of basketball podcasts that are out there. This podcast is going to be a little bit different. First of all, there are negative podcasts out there. And while we will cover negative things, we're not going to be an overly negative podcast here. We're going to try our best to keep it positive, but we are also going to keep it truthful. There's also a lot of podcasts out there where there's only one type of perspective that is shared. This podcast about basketball is going to be a little unique regarding youth basketball because we have two different perspectives and we can give you two different views. I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I was a new parent, sometimes I would call parents that had been parents for 30 years, and they had a different perspective and they couldn't really even help me on changing diapers, or they couldn't help me on some of the brand new things that I needed to know, but they could give me wisdom from a 20-year, 30-year perspective. Parenting is a long journey, and so is youth basketball. So here in this, I'm the new parent regarding basketball. I'm a little older than my co-host David Fowler, but when it comes to basketball, I'm the junior flip. So I'm the new guy, and I've only been doing this for 2 years. And I have an 11-year old and a 9-year old, and I've only been doing this for around 2.5 years. So I have a perspective. I even have a book coming out in the next year or so regarding the beginnings of youth basketball. But my co-host David Fowler, Coach David Fowler, he is an old head when it comes to this. He's been involved in AAU for a much longer period of time. He can give you the broader perspective, the long term. He can kind of give you the wider aperture than what I can give you. So with this podcast, that's the value proposition that we're going to give you. We're going to give you something a little bit different than what's been given out there today. We're going to give you the new dad perspective who is brand new at this, and you're going to see me defer more times than I probably ever deferred in my life. You know why? Because I haven't been doing this as long as my co-host David Fowler. And at the same time, I'm going to give you the new perspective. You're going to get the old head perspective, and hopefully anyone who turns into AAU or anyone involved in AAU, we can make this community better. There is a lot of improvements that can be made in AAU culture, in travel ball culture. There's a lot of improvements that can be made in athletic culture. And I think by starting the dialogue, starting the conversation right here for the love of the game, we can make a difference. So with that, I'm going to share a brief introduction of my background. 2.5 years ago, never been an athlete, played a lot of street ball, just a loving dad. I got two little daughters. Around 2.5 years ago, my oldest daughter fell in love with basketball. She hit a jumper on some boys at a rec league game. And when she hit that jumper, she just fell in love with it. She fell in love with the roar of the crowd. She fell in love with running up and down the sport, up and down the court. I jumped in and I just tried to feed what she was already falling in love with. And my youngest daughter, because the oldest daughter fell in love with it, my youngest daughter fell in love with it. And then I've fallen into, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I bumped my head, and I have gone through an AAU journey in the last 2.5 years where I've seen a lot. And I want to share some of that. I want to help people from preventing some of the mistakes that I made. Some of the mistakes were things that were unavoidable, and some of them were my fault. You know, I had to grow. I have to mature as a man and as a human being so that I can be a better dad and a better helper to my kid. And at this time, we're going to kick it to my co-host, Coach David Fowler, and he's going to share his perspective. He's going to introduce himself to you all for the love of the game.
Yeah, Tony, appreciate it, man. For me, kind of been, a long journey. Imagine what you've seen in 2.5 years. And now for me, probably AAU basketball, it's been at least 27,
Wow.
27 years.
Gee.
I started coaching my first team at 16. So that's kind of been where it was at, where you have fallen in love with it, kind of with the pushing from your daughters or whatnot. That was my first love, and so it's been a long journey. And just to introduce myself, Christian first. I always mention that first, but I am a father, a husband. And then going to I'm a student, always learning, always trying to learn, a teacher because actually that's my mortgage paying job. I am a special education teacher. And I've coached basketball now 25 years of the 33 that I've been involved in basketball. Um, and that's me. That's who I am.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And y'all, we all picked for the love of the game because when you fall in love with this game, and I'll be honest, I fell in love with the game before my kids, but I never fell in love to the perspective where I felt that I could, I was never a player. I was not on the court. There's a difference between falling in love as a spectator and falling in love where now you have a loved one who is playing. I fell in love with the game with the Jordan shot over Cleveland with, I think it was over Craig Elo.
Greg Elo, yeah.
And when he jumped in the air, that's when I fell in love with the game. And even playing street ball, running up and down, playing defense. I never was a good offensive player, but defense, I always prided myself in defense, even in playing street ball. And going up and down, there was just a love. There was something that when I played other sports, I didn't feel that way the way I felt with basketball, but of course I was just a street ball player though. And there was a feeling there, there was a love there. And the only thing that limited me is I didn't know about the growth mindset. I didn't know back in my day, I'm 52 years old, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have skills trainers. I grew up in a poor southern town where no one was showing me why my shot was off. No one was showing me make the pizza, get the cookies. No one taught me any of the form stuff. No one taught me any of that stuff. So I would work on things and I would not get better because I did not have that mentorship and I did not have that guidance, and it made me drift away from the game until my daughters came. And that's why I pour so much into my daughters, because I don't want them to suffer the way that I suffered. I believe in the growth mindset. I believe that if you teach and if you guide, you can see someone grow and develop. And some of the greatest players out there right now are not necessarily the greatest athletes, but Steph Curry is not known for jumping out the gym. He's not known for being as fast as a Russell Westbrook, but he's highly skilled and therefore he can play at a high level. So I've seen that growth and development in players since I've started helping with my daughter. I've seen it in my daughters as well. And that for the love of the game is important to me because I love this game. And I do have concerns that if we don't tweak and fix certain things about the culture, the game could suffer. There's sports out there that were popular and then they become unpopular. There's sports out there where things can change. Hockey used to be much bigger than what it is today. You know what I'm saying? I remember when I was younger, hockey was right there as bigger than basketball, and basketball has gone well past hockey. So if we don't take this and and cherish this sport, then it can go away from us. It can get away from us. Of course, basketball is going to always be played, but it could become something like soccer in America, or it can become something God forbid, like pickleball in America. You know what I'm saying? So
I
we have
think
to
we're
kind of,
seeing a shift I think we're seeing a little bit of the shift in the women's and men's game. I mean,
that's right.
and the popularity of the women's game, rising and a little bit of the popularity of the men's game going down. NBA, numbers are suffering a little bit. WNBA numbers are rising. Teams are coming in. I think we have 5 new teams coming in the next 3 or 4 years in the WNBA. So, I mean, you're right. It happens. And it's right there on the cusp of happening at the lowest level, which is, at this point is youth basketball.
That's right. Coach Fowler, now let me ask you, when did you fall in love with basketball? What was your moment? For me, it was that Craig Elo shot. When was it? When did you fall in love with basketball where you were like, oh my God, I love this game?
Well, that's Jordan on WGN, man. You remember the Chicago Bulls games were always on WGN. So, I mean, it's the same thing. I do remember the shot on Elo. I could still hear it in my head. Through the years, the shot on Elo is good. You always hear that, over and over. But, as far back as I can really remember, I mean, we were watching Fab Five the other day, and I was trying to think back, and I was like, I remember the timeout. I remember, I was a Carolina fan. I was pulling for Carolina.
Right,
But I remember the timeout. But I guess what really got me is, through some of my teenage years, man, I went through some rough spots, parents divorcing things like that, and basketball was always just like the outlet. It was there. I have a tattoo on my arm that says "Thank you, you saved my life," and it was a basketball with a lifeline through it. It's kind of that's what it's been for me. And so it's like, as far back as I can remember, basketball has been, you know, what's been a part of my life. I can't even remember a time when it wasn't. So, I mean,
right, right, right.
just because, at some part of my life, whether I was watching it, playing it, coaching it, whatever, it's always been a part of my life. And so I guess it's kind of, it's hard to pinpoint one single thing that said, this made me fall in love with the game. But it's just always been there. And no matter what I went through, no matter what anything that's happened, wherever I've moved, because I bounced around a lot, you'll hear about that throughout this podcast. It's always been there. So, I guess that's kind of where my love for the game, came from.
Amen, amen. Now, I want people to know I am not trying to be negative toward myself, but one thing I realize in the basketball community, um, and also on the internet, period, if you're not totally transparent, people will call you out and people, so I'm almost like Eminem in that rap battle where he starts talking negative about himself so that ain't no one that got nothing to say. So I just want to be openly admit I never was a great player. I played street ball and I played street ball with some of the greats, but I never played organized ball at all. So I want everyone to know that. I want to be very clear and very open with that. But one thing, why did I bring that up and why am I saying that again? 27 years ago, back in the 90s, when I would play a lot of street ball, I never would hear as much about AAU, at least down in the Fayetteville area and around my military friends. Is it my imagination, or back then there was much fewer teams and it was a little harder to get on the AAU team? Is that my imagination or?
No, no. That's the truth, man. When I started doing it, I mean, the shoe companies weren't really even involved in AAU basketball. I mean, you had like the Nike All-American camp. You had camps. That the shoe contract. I mean, the shoe companies were a part of. There weren't shoe teams. Um, you had like local teams. Like the first team that I ever coached was basically a couple kids from the middle schools in my town. So we didn't even pull from other counties. We didn't pull from other cities, things like that. We didn't go around getting players from across the state to be on the same team. We got the best kids from the 3 middle schools in Lawrence County, or 4 middle schools in Lawrence County, and that's who we rolled with. And just to fill you in, I'm from Lawrence, South Carolina, so I'm from the upstate. in South Carolina. So, so that's kind of where and the teams that we played, I mean, if we played a team from Columbia, it was one section of Columbia, South Carolina. It wasn't teams, it wasn't a bunch of kids from all over Columbia. I mean, you had probably, 20 teams from Columbia, but they all were from different sections of Columbia, and then you played teams from other parts of South Carolina. If you went across the border, we did that wasn't a huge thing then either. Going state to state and playing either. I mean, like I said, if you were one of the best players, you would get invited to one of those camps and you'd play in those camps. But it wasn't really, as far as I can recall. Like I said, man, I was 16 when I coached my first team. Our girls basketball team was in Lawrence was Associated Press top 10 and all that. They were amazing,
Wow.
and the boys didn't have much, and so I didn't have a team to play on. Let me coach something. And I had I got a little backstory to that, but a lot of kids that wanted to be a part of something, and so and so that was kind of how it was, but it definitely is not. It isn't the way it is now, where it's so watered down. I mean, there's 100 teams in one town. Um, I guess even now, following some of my friends and stuff on Facebook, social media or whatnot, um, there are, that's a small county, not a huge county. I mean, there are two high schools there, but five teams in that county now. So,
Wow.
I mean, if you don't like the way one person coaches, if your kid don't get playing time on one team, another one just pops up. Let me just start my own. That's kind of
Wow.
what we've gotten to. But you're right. From back in the day, no, that wasn't what it was.
Cool. Now, as a teaser for a future episode, I just want to throw this teaser out, something for you to think about and something for our future fans to think about. What in the last 27 years, what is something that the new AAU culture that has come to improve things, and what is something that the new AAU culture is destroying and it needs to be fixed. But we're gonna hold that one. We're gonna hold that one for a future episode. We're gonna just throwing out a teaser.
I was getting ready to unload on you, Tony.
But that's just a teaser. We're gonna throw that out for a teaser for the future. But the number one thing I think we can do to help people immediately, because of course it's gonna take us a while to resonate, because I'm gonna post this in all of the AAU groups. You know what I'm saying? And as well as I do, we 20% of them are gonna try to kill us. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there's a negative spirit there where if you're doing something different, or if you're not sharing their opinion, then all of a sudden, like, there's just I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, bro. I think it's the spirit of competition and some of the trash talk that goes on the court. When some of these guys are no longer playing, they got to talk trash in the AAU groups. You see what I'm saying? So I'm gonna post this in the AAU groups, and we're gonna catch it from 20% of the people in the AAU groups just being negative to be negative. But with that being said, I know that we can immediately help people who are brand new dads, or brand new moms that are, and when I say brand new, they've got a 7, 8 year old, and their kid has shown some interest in basketball, and they're about to sign their kid up. And the first topic I wanted us to cover today is, should your kid even be playing AAU, travel ball, rec league, or should they just be training? Before we answer that question, there's a lot of people don't understand that there is a difference between AAU, travel ball, rec league, and that difference sometimes confuses people, because I know this probably makes you smile when you hear this. Everybody calls everything that we do in AAU,
Mhm.
where 90% of the stuff that people are calling AAU is not AAU. It's I believe, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe 90% of the stuff that people are calling AAU is not an AAU sponsored organization or team. It's just travel ball. So can you help our listener with the difference between AAU and travel ball?
Well, when you look back at 27 years ago, that's kind of where it all started. I mean, it was AAU. It was YBOA, Youth Basketball of America, USSSA. So I mean, they were all sanctioned under something. but the grandfather of them all, I guess you could say, is AAU. I mean, that's kind of where the biggest one, and that's kind of where it all kind of began. Um, so I guess everybody now it just kept the name AAU as you went along. But to be honest with you, the majority of the events that you see out there now aren't sanctioned. You know, they they could be. I mean, now you have made, what's it, made hoops. You have all these other names. You have the shoe contracts, Puma Next, Under Armour. All those. None of those are AAU sanctioned. They're all their own, entity. And so that's where it came from. So I guess it just kept the name AAU, but it really is it's travel ball. Now you call it travel ball because even the ones that aren't really sanctioned under anything, it still falls under travel hoops. Falls under that. So I guess, as you look at the name, a lot of times in the descriptions of the tournaments and things like that, it'll tell you who, what it's sanctioned under. But the reason it's called AAU basketball is simply because that was, the beginning of it all was AAU. And if you didn't really see a independent tournament. Everything was sanctioned by something.
Right.
And then people just started hosting their own tournaments and whatnot, doing their own thing independently, or shoe contracts got involved, and they started holding their own leagues and their own travel leagues and whatnot. So that it just came from that, and that's why it's called AAU.
Awesome. And for the newbie who doesn't understand, you're brand new. When I say rec league, my daughter started off at the YMCA,
Hmm.
and they started playing against other YMCA teams. And the local YMCA here at Ashland, they would call the Richmond YMCA, and they would call the other. And we started with rec league first, and then after we played rec league, then through the rec league process, we heard about we heard about a particular program that was focused on girls basketball, and then we went and tried out for that after training and after spending at least 2 seasons. We spent at least 2 seasons in rec league before we tried out for that travel ball team that was focused on girls. Um, with that being said, though, and we've kind of laid out the difference. There's AAU, which is kind of like the historical legacy organization that was way back in the day. Travel ball, which is kind of ubiquitous for almost all the club teams that play out there. Then there's rec league at your YMCA, and I would call. Are you familiar in your area? They have something called I-9. Are you familiar with that? There's another little. It's almost like a rec league where they call it I-9. That it's not quite YMCA, but it's very similar.
Yeah.
And so you have rec league as well. But the big thing I kind of see is a lot of these coaches, they they may need a certain amount of players to fill a team, and they also may want your money, and your kid, may not be fully suited or ready for travel ball. And I always kind of I'm writing a book, and one of the things, at least from my newbie perspective, there should be some basic fundamental skills that a kid should know before they start trying to play travel ball that they've worked out either with a trainer or at the rec league first. And so I'll throw out some, but I mean, Coach, do you have any suggest? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think I'm off on there? I'm a newbie. I'm
It's
humble when it comes to this stuff. So
man, it's watered down, but it also is a lucrative business. That's what I feel like, and I could, go on for days with this is what I feel like the shoe companies brought to AAU basketball, travel basketball, was it turned into, a business. Coaches could start making money off of their players. Now players can start making money off of themselves. But coaches could coattail and get jobs and could get money, could get all kind of things, just off of their players. And once people started seeing that they could make money off of this or that they could get jobs out of this, they jumped into it. Where before, if you got cut, you just went to the playground, you went to the gym, you got better, You worked on your game, but you didn't have trainers like that, like you do now, because that's watered down as well. But you would just go to the gym, you would work as hard as you could, you'd play some pickup basketball, and try out again next year.
Mm,
Whereas now you get cut from one team, you just go try out next weekend for another team, and eventually, after you try out for all 25 teams within your 10-mile radius, you find one that'll keep you. For one reason or another, whether they need a roster filler, whether they want your, you know, fee to play for the team or whether, you fit in or whatever. It's just so watered down, man. And you go to some of these tournaments and you see teams getting beat by 50, 60 every weekend. I host tournaments. We see teams come in and it's like, I scratch my head and I'm like, why are they even putting money into this? I understand you want them to get better. I'm a strong believer that you can't simulate games. You need to play to get better. You can't just go and do drills all the time. You actually, you need to play. You need to, experience the games. But it's just so watered down, and because it's so lucrative and because you can make so much money off of it nowadays, it's just popping up everywhere, and they're taking advantage of travel ball. They're taking advantage of rec leagues. I mean, I think a lot of rec leagues are money grabs, you know, and training. Anybody can be a trainer. You don't have to have any kind of certification. You don't have to have any kind of, background. I mean, you could have been the worst player on your middle school basketball team and never played after that, and you can be a trainer nowadays. You just say, y'all, who really who really checks anyway? That would be a piece of advice I would give a parent would be, if you're going to hire a trainer, do some background digging and figure out who you got training, your kid, because I mean, anybody can go watch a couple YouTube videos and say, hey, I got some drills for you,
right,
and that's where a lot of them are doing, to be honest with you.
right.
So it's just a big money grab, man. It's a lucrative business. And that's just causing it to be watered down. And I don't think that you have to be very careful. And I've made mistakes. I've been doing this for a long time and I'm making mistakes. I'm navigating this thing with my kids because the landscape has changed so much. I'm navigating it with my daughter. I had, my oldest son played as well. And I made mistakes with both of them. I'm still making mistakes with my daughter, and this is, so it's tough. It is, it's a tough, you know, thing to navigate right now because it's hard to trust anybody.
Yeah, I got a little story to tell with that one as well. First of all, I'm so thankful. I'm not trying to be overly religious, but I'm thankful that God really protected me because my first couple of trainers were really honest and good people,
Mm.
and they gave me decent rates, and they did not take me to the cleaners, and they were also good trainers. They were solid, great trainers. And I'm so thankful I didn't run into this guy that I'm about to, I won't say his name, but I'm gonna mention his name's not important, but because my wife and I are a little older, and I'm a disabled vet, and we have some mobility issues. Um, I know my daughters when it comes, we're 2 years into this thing now, so my daughters have to face some real tough covers regarding dribbling and things like that. So of course I can rebound the ball for somebody and I can help them with their form shots, but when it comes to providing that pressure on dribbling and other things, I'm not at that level to, I have to kind of, I need someone to help my kids when it comes to that perspective. And so we're always looking for, because the trainers that we have, sometimes they're not available. And I always want my kids to train 6 days a week, an hour and a half every day. And uh, I went and I ran into this guy who he looked like he was doing some good stuff. And I know enough to kind of watch to see what he's about. And he came back and I exchanged information with me. And he came back with a quote, and I think it was anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month that he he wanted to trade. And the funny part about this is, um, I had for one of my guys kind of because. I'll give him a. I'm gonna give my guy a positive plug. We have a great trainer named Kendrick Robinson, and he played D3 for 4 years over there in different Virginia schools. and he's been a great trainer for my kids. And Kendrick is already training with my kids and doing the same thing. And we walk into the YMCA, and Kendrick is on the left hand doing the same drills and giving us an honest and a good rate. And then this guy is charging someone $3,000 on the other side of the court to do the same drill and probably even not as well. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? And so you do have to really be careful and kind of understand the lay of the land before you start spending money and giving money to someone. I think you can get a good trainer for around $20 to $25 an hour, or $25 to $50 an hour. I think that's. Would you say that you can get a good trainer for that amount, or is that too low? Um,
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm less experienced with that because, with my experience, I have a hard time paying somebody else to do something that I could do myself,
sure, sure,
So,
sure, sure.
so I look at it as now I will say that Italy has had some trainers. And the funny thing is they were players that had played for me in the past, who are both very solid trainers, and the reason I did it was, one, I'm trying to support what they have going on because I do believe in what they're doing. Uh, and then the other reason is I've really tried to take a hands-off approach with my daughter more than with my boys, just because I don't want to. I want to be dad. I saw where I made some mistakes with my oldest son, as far as being dad and coach.
Sure,
So it's like at this point, I don't want to make the same. She's very gifted, and I don't want to be the person that pushes her away from it because she doesn't have support from dad and then coaching from coach.
sure.
She has to get coach from dad, support from dad, and all of that. That gets tricky. So I will say that I don't know the rates as well. I haven't shopped around for rates. But I will. What the quotes you're giving off do sound about right. With the guys that I had. Um,
Now, Coach Fowler, what are some basic things I think a kid should be able to do? They don't need to be able to hit every free throw, but they should be able to do a basic form free throw shot. When they're starting off at 7, 8 years old, I think they should be able to at least hit one out of 6 or 7 free throws if they're attempting. They should be able to do a basic form shot. Um, they should be able to do. I think they should be able to do a basic layup, and at least be able to dribble to half court, or at least be able to dribble with one hand to half court. Um, they should at least kind of know where to go for the 3-man weave.
mhm.
And is there anything else you think that there's some basic stuff that before you go and try to bring your kid to a travel ball, what are some other basic moves or just a basic thing before you sign your kid up for travel ball? This is for the new dad. I know it's hard for you to remember back this far back, you know what I'm saying? But
Well, Italy's only been playing for 3 years. I mean,
okay,
Italy,
okay, so
Italy, Italy, Italy just turned 12, man. So she's young in this. So
right,
this is, yeah. But as far as what I did with her, and I didn't focus as much on the makes.
sure,
I focused on the muscle memory.
okay,
A lot of kids get so used to throwing the ball because they're too weak to shoot it
right.
that when they get older, they're still throwing the ball. And
Mm,
then now you're teaching the old dog new tricks.
right,
And so I really focused 100% on the process and the fundamentals. I want you to do it right.
sure,
It doesn't, we don't worry about the makes and all of that. The makes will come if you do it right.
sure,
You'll get the results,
sure,
but you have to do it the right way. And you're going to get bigger. I still tell her that. I mean, she plays up. She just played up 2 age groups this weekend, and it wasn't the most successful weekend for her. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the most success she's ever seen. And I tell her, you're a sixth grader, rising seventh grader playing against rising ninth graders this weekend. You're going to be smaller. You're going to be weaker, but rely on your fundamentals. Rely on the things you know how to do. And when you're the rising ninth grader, you're going to be bigger you're going to be stronger, and they're not. They're gonna, they're at some point, people stop growing. It'll even out. You'll catch up. And so that's the approach I've had since day one is, you're going to get bigger, you're going to get stronger, but let's focus on doing it the right way day one. Your form has to be right. You have to be able to make a left-handed layup. You have to be able to make a right-handed layup. You have to be able to handle the ball properly, dribbling at the right height, the right speed. One thing she's really still working on is she's lightning quick, doesn't change the speeds very well. And
Mm.
I think that's important as well to learn early. I wish I would have taught her that a little earlier because it's so hard getting her out now because she's relied on her speed up to this point to beat everybody. And you can get away with that at a younger age, but now that it's starting, to be a little bit more disciplined basketball, it's harder to operate that way. But yeah, so I just focus really not on the makes, not on the outcome, but on the fundamentals and doing it the right way.
Amen. Now, so let me rephrase I'm gonna turn the question a little bit so we can help that brand new dad. Okay, I want you to think back 3 years ago, and because I know you had Italy. What are some warning signs that you've seen? As Italy looked down the bench and you saw some, you saw some kids that were there that they were kind of just filling the seat and they really weren't, because sometimes you can get in that. I won't ever I'm not going to ever call anyone out or anything, but I've seen situations where I saw kids who just were not ready. They weren't ready for travel ball, and even when they would get put in the game for those 5 to 7 minutes, they really struggled. Just to stay on the court just for those 5 to 7 minutes. Um, what are some warning signs where you think like maybe the kids should spend some more time at rec league or some more time training before they go to a travel team?
Uh, well, I mean, I guess not necessarily a warning sign, but I mean, you can tell kind of when the parent wants it more than the kid.
Mm.
And you can kind of tell when the kid's not really invested. I mean, when every time out they run to their book bag or their basketball bag or whatever and grab their cell phone, or they take, 20 water breaks, during practice or whatever. And it's like, you can tell that they're not invested. When it's time to run, they're in the bathroom, those type of things, those are always things that I look at and I'm like, they don't really, does the parent want it more than they really do? And
Yeah.
if they don't want it and you're forcing it, I mean, you're not going to get, I would say introduce the game to them and let it go from there. With Italy, I never forced it as bad as I wanted to. I literally until she finally made the decision to play basketball, and it was crazy how she did it. I was like, man, this was my last chance, and I don't have one that's gonna, but she was always in the gym with me. But she was always in the gym with boys. It wasn't until she actually saw some girls playing that she's like, "Oh, girls play basketball too. I,
Uh,
I want to play."
right, right, right.
Because he always thought it was a boys' sport. Because I always coach boys for the most part. Um, you know, but so I never forced it. But as soon as she realized that she wanted to play it, but she's always been that overachiever. I want to get it right. I want to, a lot of grind and everything that she's kind of done. So it's hard for me to gauge most kids off of that because not to hype my daughter like that, but I am kind of happy that she's self motivated. But I guess, just, you know, with AAU really to me shouldn't start in third and fourth grade. I mean, I'm sorry. I just don't think it should be that early.
Right.
Just recently we started offering it at our tournaments because it's in such high demand right now. But I really think that they should focus more on the fundamentals and playing, local basketball, whether it be rec or whatever, rather than going out and trying to, travel and do all of that early. And a lot of people would judge me. A lot of people, oh, you always talk about you got to get out and play at different places. I do, maybe not that young, 8, 9 years old. I mean, you can start telling the kids that are invested, around fourth, fifth, sixth grade. You can start telling the kids that, hey, these kids really want to play, you know. But for me, you'll have one or two kids that stand out, and then you'll have the rest of them that are kind of the middle group, and then you'll have the few that you're talking about that just don't look invested at all. They're focused when they're sitting on the bench, they're focused on everything but what's going on in the game. They're not watching the game. They go get their cell phones every opportunity they get, water breaks all the time. I mean, those are things that I see, so.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I'm laying this out for because I've got a coworker and he's always expressing his frustration because his wife believes in his son's basketball credentials way more than he does, and you know, and that's what I hope. Even when I bring out my book, I'm hoping to help people with this because I don't think folks understand the level of commitment it takes, the amount of time. Like for instance, once you start going to one of these tournaments, you get there at around, sometimes you can get there as early as 8 a.m. and you ain't leaving until 4 p.m. or 5 p.m.
Mhm.
And then you're coming back the next day and you're there from another 9 a.m. to at least 2 p.m. on a Sunday. And sometimes you're there on a Friday night, as well,
The tournament, yeah.
depending on the tournament. And I mean, if you really want to do that as a parent, if you want to go and spend all weekend long at a place where in some of these places you're getting charged a lot of money as well, you're going to stay there all weekend long and you're going to see your kid play 14 minutes. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to be sitting there all weekend long. Then, you just got to kind of brace for that. And you got to be, you got to really be. And for me, from my perspective, I can handle my kid playing, depending on which team, I can handle my kid playing 14 minutes for the whole weekend. But I got to have some belief that during our private practice time and our training time, that we're working towards something, that there's a future. If I'm going to sit
Yeah.
there, because, just for the parents out there, I'm 52 years old. I don't want to be sitting, Lord willing, I got another 20, 30 years. You see what I'm saying? But
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
feel like I got a lot of time. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to be sitting around on the weekend where my kid's going to quit in 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, if I didn't believe that my kids had a future in this, then like, it's way too much time commitment for me to go and be spending and sitting around all weekend long if I didn't believe and I didn't have hope that maybe there's some, if I didn't have some scholarship hope that was out there. And I know I think only 1.5% or 1.3% of all kids win scholarships. I know that's a daunting number and that's a number that stays in my head. But if I didn't have that hope, I don't know how you wait around for 18 hours on a weekend. You
It's
see
tough.
what
It's absolutely tough. Like I've been on both ends of that. My son decent ball player. Not a scholarship level player. And then Italy, who is, but also Italy has been on a team, where the minutes weren't there the way that we felt they should, or the way she thought they should, or whatnot. And so we've been there, and the team that she sat on, the one team that she has sat on in all of this time, was probably the team that traveled the most, the furthest we went, and the most money that we forked out, and whatnot. So that in itself, was frustrating, just because it's like, this is not cheap, um, I would like to say that, I feel like my tournaments are probably as inexpensive as you can possibly get. But I just paid $180 for me, my wife, and my son to watch Italy play over the weekend. $60 for the weekend pass.
oh,
So that's 60 a person for the weekend pass, to do the quick math. Uh, you know, and then I had to pay $10 a day parking. So it was now she played, so I was okay, cool. I didn't sit there and watch her. We didn't go and sit her watch her sit on the bench. But I have been where I put in not that much money, but put in a significant amount of money, and has watched my son sit on the bench. And even with Italy a couple years ago. I'm trying to be good about not naming names and naming team names and stuff. But there were a couple we'd go to and we'd pay, a hefty door, fee and we're watching other people's kids play for that, and that level of commitment is rough, but I do feel like she got something from that season. She was humbled big time. You go from, hearing your name a lot and hardly coming out of the games and this and that. She got a chance to be humbled, and I think that ignited a new fire in her. That won't it would that's not going to be every kid. They'll lose their passion. A lot of them will lose their passion instead of, ignite a bigger fire. But it does take a level of commitment either way. I mean, even when your kid's playing, sometimes those are long days, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And
Yes, it is.
the practices, 2 or 3 practices a week, you got your weekends tied up, you know, the financial commitment you have to make, that AAU's not for the weak at heart,
Not at all. Not at all. And then another thing that I think, especially we're speaking to the young parents here, is that even if it's a tournament that's, let's say, 70 miles, 80 miles away, you'll notice that if you don't drive your kid up there the day before, if they're sitting in the car for 2 hours, prior to a game, they don't play as well. At least mine's did not play as well because they get stiff in the car
Mhm.
prior to a game. So guess what you have to do? You
Hotel.
got you got to go and buy a hotel room, for $140. You know what I'm saying? $150. So I think parents need to really think about it before they sign their kids up. And I really would. This is the way I kind. There's an analogy I use for my kids and for other people. I say the personal practice and the drills, those are like homework.
Hmm.
And then I say that I used to say that the games were the test and the final exam, but then that was too heavy for my kid, because my oldest, she carries it, she wears it, and it gets
Hmm.
really, she stresses herself out. So I stopped calling it a final exam. I call it a practice test
Yeah,
because I don't want to put too much pressure on her for just a local tournament game.
absolutely.
So I use that analogy because you need to do your homework, but then after you do your homework, you need to ask yourself, have you really retained what you thought you learned while you were doing the homework? And you
Mhm.
do that through the practice test. And like you said, it's almost impossible to duplicate a game. You can practice all you want. Cones are cones, bones are bones. You see what I'm saying?
Yep,
And cones don't move like bones.
yep.
We've matter of fact, if it was practice, my kids are already D1 level. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly, exactly. And no matter what, like I said, when you have to read and react, you can say, I tell my daughter all the time, you need to do this drill at game speed. What in the world does that really mean?
Right, right, right.
Because what is game speed?
That's
If
right.
you have to learn to play at different speeds,
That's
what is
right.
game speed? And it's not game speed, it's read and react. Because I can go at the speed of a game, what a game might be, but I'm not reading and reacting to anything if there's a cone sitting there.
That's
You
right.
know, you know the cone's there, and you know where the cone's going to be when you make your move. It's
That's
still
right.
going to be there,
That's right.
but
That's
you don't
right.
know what a defender's going to do in a game. And so you have to learn to read and react from what defenders do. You have to learn by experience that way. So that's what when I said that earlier, you can't simulate a game, you can't duplicate a game experience. You can only get game experience from game experience.
Amen. Amen. And I think something we can agree on, and I'm hoping our listeners take away from this, is before you go and send your kid out there for a practice test, you need to go and have done some homework. You need to have done some homework with you personally working with them with YouTube drills and training. You need to do some homework. I Phil Handy was helpful to me. Who's some people that you like online? Well, you probably didn't even need to use anything online because you're at a different spot than me.
I've just used it. I've used a lot of what a lot of what I've seen through the years, man.
Okay.
The game changes a little bit, but I still feel like the preparation is still the same. To me, yes, it's changed. Yeah, it's a little bit more athletic in some regards. A lot of people say, But I feel like if you focus on the fundamentals, you focus on the things that matter, you know, you'll be a solid player, you
That's
know.
awesome.
So it had nothing. I still teach my daughter the same things that I taught kids 20 years ago.
That's awesome.
So,
That's,
to me, in that regard, the preparation is the same.
amen. Now it's time in the podcast for us. This has flown by. 50 minutes has flown by very quickly. At least it was quick on my part because you're an easy person to talk to, Coach. Um, I'll share this. It's time for us to just let people know where people can find out about our kids on socials. Let people know, and I just I want to vouch for Coach Fowler. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. And I wish I could remember the name of the guy who hosted our worst tournament because to be honest with you, that worst tournament I went to, if I could remember his name, I would put him on blast right now. But
But
because
I got one. If you can't think of one, I got one. But man, I hate to jump out the gate. Just
no, I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna do it. But
I want to so bad, man. But because I'll be honest with you, I know we're getting ready to transition into to the end of this, but for the love of the game, man. We were talking about how we fell in love with the game. You think about a loved one. If someone disrespects a loved one, you're gonna speak up on it.
that's right.
and and
That's
you're
right.
not and you're not gonna pull punches,
That's right.
and so to me, that's part of what this is. I see social media posts all the time. I experience tournaments, I experience camps and things, and I just feel like a lot of it's so disrespectful to the game, you
Right.
know, and so I just want to comment on what they, comment on that post or comment on, or say something to somebody, the director of a tournament or director of a camp, and just be like, man, you're disrespecting the game. But that's where I pull my punches.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
But
For our listener, though, I can say I've probably been to at least 15 to 20 tournaments in the last 2.5 years because my kid's been playing, almost nonstop. Your tournament, your future basketball tournaments over there in the name of the city is escaping me. I'm sorry, bro.
Harrisonburg.
Amen.
We're
Uh,
in other cities too, but you've been in the ones in Harrisonburg.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Harrisonburg and over there near Radford. Is near Radford as well, right? What was the name? What's the name of the college up there that you host sometimes in?
James Madison University and
James Madison
Eastern
University,
Mennonite. Eastern
Harrisonburg.
Mennonite.
I apologize. I sometimes those things they get twisted up in my head. I
You
apologize.
go to so many of them,
Yes,
you'll remember small parts about things. But yeah,
but the one thing I do remember, your future. There's two tournaments I want to really uplift. Your future basketball, and then there is one up there in Boyd's, Maryland, that's hosted by Maryland AAU team. I can't remember the Maryland AAU team.
Maryland Flames.
Maryland Flames,
Yeah,
yes.
yep, yep.
Maryland Flames and Boyd's, Maryland. Y'all two have the most high class tournaments that I've seen where there wasn't anything stupid going on. There wasn't anything, there was nothing crazy going on. Everyone has got some sense. The referees are high quality. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean every referee is perfect, but I'm talking about overall the referees care. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And you got scorekeepers and you got people like it's organized, and the way things are handled is professional and organized. So I highly recommend your future basketball. Y'all have your own Facebook page, right?
yeah. We have Facebook. You find us Your Future Basketball, and then website yourfuturebasketball.com.
Okay. And an NIL that you want, because I'm sure it's going to be a big NIL page. Did you want to share Italy socials as well so that people can, that future coaches and folks, or you just want to wait on that one?
Yeah,
Whatever.
I mean, if you made a section for that, we could do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So share Italy social so that people can check her out because that's going to be. She has a lot of basketball clips on there, and NIL is the future, and
Yeah,
and,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
the growth of her socials that can mean some money down the line. So
Yeah.
we want to share her socials. Do you have that written down? Do you know that offhand?
Well, I do know that Instagram is itty. underscore baller. So it's ITYY underscore baller, BALLER
Amen.
2031. So 2031. Her Facebook is facebook.com / and it's Italy.Fowler. And then she has her own website as well, italyfowler.com. So
Amen. Amen. One of the best point guards in Virginia. Amen. For her age, may be the best point guard in Virginia, as far as I'm concerned. Amen.
man, I
So,
appreciate that.
and I'll let y'all know about my babies. And I ain't gonna lie, I annoy people. I promote my kids so much. Amen. And but
That's
it's
good, man. It's good stuff. I enjoy watching it, man. I've enjoyed watching her progression. Uh,
amen.
Courtney's the oldest, right? Yeah, Courtney.
Yes, sir. Courtney's the oldest.
I have enjoyed watching her progression from over in Richmond now up to Northern Virginia. It's been a sight to see, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So y'all can follow Courtney at Courtney's Chronicles, and she's Courtney with a K, and the Chronicles is with a K. And in addition, she has a YouTube channel, and she has her I run it, but it's her Instagram account. So y'all can follow her there. And then Nadia just has an Instagram account. It's the Notebook of Nadia, the Notebook of Nadia. So y'all can follow that there. And we're going to be posting for the love of the game. We're going to hope to shoot for once a week. And I think we've already kind of given you a perspective. I think a good takeaway, AAU travel ball is a commitment. It's it's one heck of a practice test. And before you take that practice test, you need to do your homework, and you need to make sure um, that you've prepared your kids for success in any environment that they go into. So before you go and sign them up and pay money for an AAU team or a travel ball team, make sure you spent some time in the rec league. Make sure you spent some time training them and working with them. And I can say this as well. I don't want to leave on something negative, but I'm saying this for the love of the game. I don't understand parents who don't want to roll their sleeves up and don't want to help, but expect their kids to just learn on their own. You've got to be willing. I'm a disabled vet, and I go and I'll rebound the ball, and I'm still, especially younger when we first started. Courtney's a little too fast for me nowadays, so I need a little help with Courtney. But I spent a lot. My wife and I spent both a lot of sweat equity out there to help our kids get better. And sometimes I see parents who they want their kids to get better, but they don't want to invest their own time. And then they just expect a travel ball or an AAU coach to magically make them better.
Yeah.
And that's not fair. That's not fair to your kids. So I'm hoping you get that. It's going to require either some work or some money or some commitment in order to prepare your kids for travel ball or AAU. And you need to think about that before you sign up.
It's
And we're saying that. What's that?
probably gonna take all three.
That's right. That's right. It's gonna take all three. It's gonna take all three, and we're just trying to save you some time and money before you invest in something that you're not ready for. And,
Exactly.
and we love basketball. We want the community to grow, but the community grows when people are happy with their experience and they've been blessed by their experience. The community doesn't grow when kids get frustrated and they feel cheated.
Yeah.
Any other closing thoughts, Coach Fowler?
Uh, no. Oh, but you did mention Courtney's YouTube. Italy's YouTube is Italy's Playbook. Dribbling.
Italy's playbook. All right. I like that name. I like that name. Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though, just as a warning, Courtney's YouTube has all of these edits where these kids do these things called edits, and it's non-basketball related. So there's basketball clips on Courtney's YouTube, but she got all of these young kid teeny bopper edits on
Uh,
there, and I don't even understand it. You know what I mean? So I just like, all right,
Italy's mentioned it, but I haven't seen it yet. So I think I'm actually on somebody's edit because I'm a teacher, and so somebody got some stuff of me and put it out there, and she mentioned that. I hadn't even seen it yet, so I don't know, man. I don't know what that is.
yeah, here's my limit with my kid. I told her, I said, I better not see no cursing on there, and I better not see no nudity on there. You know what I'm saying? As long as I don't see nothing sexual, as long as I don't see no nudity, and I don't see no cursing, then I'll let you slide because I don't want to be domineering or controlling. But I'm trying to keep their passion alive, and we just thank y'all for tuning in for the first podcast. Amen. And I really love this because I think for the love of the game, I think we can put out some information that makes a difference in our community and might help some people who are thinking about joining. So we just thank y'all for tuning in for this first podcast and keep this in mind. I think the first podcast went really well, so we're going nowhere but up from here. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, for Coach Fowler, for bringing your level of expertise and all of your years of experience to this podcast. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir, man. I'm loving this.
All right. God bless y'all.